Zoots Boxing Talk, the boxing show where we give you sweet science straight up with no twist. And if you're a fan of the show, follow me on Twitter at Zoot1971. Go to blogtalkradio.com and become a follower of the show. Like Zoots Boxing Talk on Facebook. Go to boxingiq.com and gofightlive.com. Go Fight Live, a hot site where you could get a lot of fights. Some are free, some you have to pay for, but a very minimal charge. And my next guest has been on Go Fight Live. He's got several fights on there on Go Fight Live. Eddie Chambers cannot make it at the moment. Maybe we'll get to him later. But first up, also fighting on Saturday night, heavyweights collide. Bryant By By Jennings, this young man, is one of the more exciting young American heavyweights. He's been on TV a couple of times, looked fabulous in his last performance, and he's a Philadelphia fighter, always special there. Bryant, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. Thanks for coming on, especially with the time change and all. I've been watching a lot of your fights lately, looking forward to seeing the action on Saturday. But give us a little bit of your background. How did you get started into boxing?
Just being competitive, At the age of 24, I just pretty much stepped in the gym, and I started. And my first day was pretty much successful, and it was one day after the next after that.
You were also very successful as a football player. I mean, on this show, I've gotten to a lot of discussions about which sport is more brutal. They obviously have a lot of hard hits in both sports. Compare the two a little bit if you can. What are the biggest differences between football and boxing, and which one was more grueling for you?
Boxing is definitely the most grueling sport. It takes a hell of a level of conditioning, to be at the top, or to be at the best of conditioning. Football is pretty hard. You do have hits, but boxing is like continuous stress, and it's more mental than anything. You have to have your brain intact in order to be, successful in this boxing game.
Now, obviously, when you talk about boxing, you talk about history. No sport has a bigger history and a better, history than boxing. And coming from Philadelphia, that's one of the staples of American boxing, a Philadelphia fighter. At what point did you realize how special that tag was?
I always noticed that, from me being a boxing fan, before I even got into it, with all the Philadelphia fighters, in the past, in history. So, that was something that I immediately embraced, once I figured out I would take boxing serious.
Now, you're a young guy, but recently the heavyweight division in American boxing hasn't all been that rich in tradition, but the history is there. What were some of the fighters you liked watching growing up?
Holyfield was my favorite fighter, of all time. Then, of course, Mike Tyson was definitely inspiring to watch. Then you had to go to like the smaller guys, like the Floyd Mayweathers and the Oscar De La Hoyas, the Bernard Hopkins, the Roy Jones. People like that. Those are like amongst my favorite people coming up.
Well, a lot of rich tradition there, and obviously you turned pro in 2010 to start your own legacy fighting in Philadelphia. Describe to us the pro debut, number one, and fighting in Philadelphia. How was that?
The pro debut was kind of like I thought it would be much harder than it was, even though I know it was much more serious, straight up coming from an amateur level. But my mind was pretty much there already, and I was more mature, and I think that was something that I had needed. Like I was ready for it. Like I was ready to be a pro.
And then in your second fight, you had the pleasure of fighting in the famed Blue Horizon, one of the more unique venues. Growing up watching Tuesday Night Fights USA, they often visited the Blue Horizon. Always something special there. Describe that venue for us.
Yeah, well, that's the Blue Horizon is actually, it's legendary. That's how you start off by saying Horizon, the legendary Blue Horizon. So, that was definitely excellent. It's even more of a pleasure for the fact that it's not around right now. I don't know what that's about, but it's not around right now. So at least I get to say I have fought in there. I fought in there in my amateurs, and then I fought once as a pro. So as long as I got to fight in that building once, I was a part of history.
Well, I was looking at your record and looking at some of your fights, and one of the strange things I thought was, in your third fight, you already had a rematch. Against the guy you beat in your pro debut. You went 4 rounds and got a unanimous decision. You swept on all 3 cards. Why did you have to fight him again?
Well, he was
Zeffirino Albino is the fighter's name.
Yeah. Zeffirino was he was a late replacement. We had somebody else in line, didn't fall through, and we didn't want to waste nothing. And he stepped up to the plate again, and I was like, I'll take you out this time.
And you took him out indeed in the first round, and then in your fourth fight you fought a fellow by the name of Burnell Stewart. Now, this is one of the fights that is featured on GoFightLive.com. That is free. You don't have to pay to watch this. And you were very impressive in this fight. I like the movement. I like the work behind the jab, and you hit him with some really thunderous right hands.
Yeah. Well, Burnell was definitely a slick individual. He actually was the top amateur. He won the Golden Gloves in 2006 or 7 or something like that. So he pretty much wasn't no slouch. He wasn't in his best of shape, but his technique and stuff, he was definitely a slick person.
Yeah, and you hit him with some thunderous punches. What happens to you in the ring when you hit the guy with the Sunday punch, a devastating punch? 9 times out of 10 the guy is going to fall when you hit him with that punch, and he stands there and takes it. What goes through your mind at that point?
Nothing goes through my mind. Pretty much, degrading. I just say, well, I'll just hit him again, or you ain't gonna take this one, or are you taking more? Well, you just gonna keep standing there, huh? And, just pretty much, I'll just have more drive to to try to just keep hitting, and I don't always go for the knockout at all, but knockouts basically come, so I don't try to force it, and that's another part, that's another stage of the mentality in boxing, to where if you don't let that get to your head, he's taking all my punches, and I can't hurt him. So most guys they degrade themselves inside of the ring during the fight if they face a guy who they can't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I never could make it as a fighter. If I hit somebody as hard as you hit Stewart and he didn't fall, I'd be like, oh man, come on. Yeah. What else can I do? All the life would have been sucked out of me. But you mentioned some good points about your style, and that's the next thing I wanted to ask you. You feature a lot of good lateral movement in some of these early fights, but you also showcase yourself as somebody who could really bang. If you had to describe yourself, what type of a boxer would you say you are?
I would say I'm a boxer, slash puncher. But I can definitely do just about everything. But the opponent that I would have in front of me, he makes that that decision will be made based upon what he does. If I'm ever in a trap or whatever, and I can't get out, then I'll sit there and bang. But for the most part, my movement could take me out of a whole lot of jams, and I don't really necessarily have to sit there and bang. Sort of like what Floyd Mayweather just did against Cotto. He didn't have to sit there at all, but he pretty much wanted, that's what he wanted to do. I guess he was getting bored, so, I guess he wanted to show the fans, I can do this too. I can stay toe-to-toe, do all that. So, but his style was pretty much to just, box, get away, move, and be more of a technician. So that's pretty much me.
Now that's how you present yourself. Now, how about how you like to have it in the ring against your opponent? Is there one type of style that you prefer, or is there one type of style that gives you more fits than another one fighting opponents?
I mean, it depends. It depends. It definitely depends. But I like to have like to have a boxing style. Just like a completeness. Move around. But I love defense. Don't let me forget my defense. Defense. Defense is my twist. That's my twist right there.
Well, yeah, you've been very good defensively, especially when you're fighting inside. A lot of guys, when they fight on the inside, don't know how to cover up. But in the fights I've seen you in, when you have banged inside, you land a good body shot and you cover up, and then you go back upstairs and you cover up. Is that something that comes natural, or is that something that was taught to you?
That's somewhat natural and somewhat taught to me. You could say it's 50-50. I will only say that because because my instincts, period. Like I don't know what I used to. I didn't know what I didn't know. But man, hold on. Sit down, cause Daddy on the phone. That's my son acting all crazy because he see me on the phone. But yeah, my trainer taught me a lot. He taught me a lot, and he has a whole lot of credit to a whole lot of stuff. But I was always athletic and all that stuff anyway. So.
All right, and in your last fight, which was featured on NBC Sports Network, you fought probably, I would think, a step up in competition against Sergey Liakhovich, certainly a name, recognizable name, a talented guy. You roughed him up pretty good. You featured a lot of different things that we're talking about here: the good defense, the power, the good inside fighting, the movement, the fighting from a distance. You did pretty much everything in that fight, and he kept taking it, and you kept wearing him down. He couldn't come out for the 10th round. That was a great fight and a great night for you.
Yeah, I definitely salute myself to that fight. It was a complete fight. A lot of the guys would say, before I fought him, or when it actually was planned, before that fight actually, took place, they would say, I took too much of a chance, or they say I bit off more than I can chew, and I can't handle that. Then after the fact, after I beat him, now they're saying, oh, he was washed up, or he's this and he's that. But if you take his last fight, he did a pretty good job against Robert Helenas.
Hey, don't you just love that, how people turn on a dime on you? I mean, going into it, Liakhovich was, he's been a guy that I've had on this show, sort of thought of as had to have a resurgence. He's been in big fights, and you lick him like one of your easier fights, I would think, and then they try and degrade it. But you can't let that stuff get to you. But how do you like to respond when people say that?
I pretty much just don't. I just pretty much brush it off. I have like tunnel vision, so as though my thoughts are my thoughts, and there's nobody gonna make me change my thoughts. There's no other theories that they can give me to make me change my thoughts. They can make me make a light blink or whatever, and I can be like, oh well, you got a point there, but my thoughts are my thoughts, and I stick to my thoughts and I stick to my thinking.
You're definitely a guy with special talent. You're the Philadelphia fighter, and I was looking up, and I was surprised. I didn't know this. It was reported that you're the first heavyweight signed by Russell Pelt since Jesse Ferguson. How did that happen? When did Russell approach you? I mean, what was the process like in him signing you? Describe that experience for us.
Oh well, him and Fred Jenkins, which is my trainer and my manager, pretty much have a type relationship throughout the boxing world. Fred's been in this for almost 40 years, and so have Russell, and they've been Fred's been bringing them fighters left and right forever so that was the first guy we actually went to, and I don't think he took it at first. I think pretty much wanted to see what I had, and after that I guess he took the chance, and he made one of the best decisions in his career.
Yeah, and were you aware that Peltz hasn't had a heavyweight in his stable for a long time? Were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware of that at all. Only people I knew was was who he has now, and all the other guys, they were old heads. They were been going to retire. Yeah, you hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a little bit of a mic difficulty there for a second, and I heard you, but I don't guess you weren't hearing me. But now we're all good. So, the Sergey Liakhovich fight, absolutely wonderful, great performance. Everything clicked in that fight. But at this point in time, have you had a really tough fight? Who's been the toughest cookie to crack in the ring thus far for you?
I would say my toughest fight to this day, I have two toughest fights. I have Alexis Mejias, which is my 9th fight. I had a tough time with him because of my training. I pretty much was doing everything while I was training. My focus pretty much wasn't there. And then, the day of the fight, I found out I had to swing bout. It was just sitting around, cold. I had a rough start. I had a rough first round, and I pretty much was kind of sloppy for the rest of the fight. Still dominated, but I was kind of sloppy, and I was kind of rushing, and I didn't like the fight. And so then my second toughest fight, which would be Maurice Byron, because I took that fight on 5 days' notice, and that was tough, preparing, from Tuesday to Saturday, and I'm like, my God, this is real tough. And then, being in there, giving it your all and pushing yourself to the limit, that was real tough for me.
Now you've been, in terms of weight, you've been right around 220 to 223. Your heaviest, I think, was 224. Your weigh-in is coming up in a couple of days. What kind of weight do you feel comfortable at? What are you anticipating for Saturday night?
All right. Well, just to let you know, my weight fluctuates. My highest weight was 228, and that was a November 19th fight. And I actually felt lighter there, but I ate a whole lot of peanut butter and jellies and egg sandwiches during that training. But my weight never goes past 228 and never goes under, maybe 220. I've been 218, but that was super low. But my weight pretty much stays no matter what I do. If I don't do nothing, I could still be 223. And that's how I've been ever since I was about 14 years old.
All right, and we're talking to Bryant By By Jennings, who's fighting Saturday night at the Prudential Center. Heavyweights collide. Tomas Adamek, Eddie Chambers is the headline fight. Bryant Jennings, you're featured against Steve Collins, another young fighter, 28 years old, good record. What do you know about your opponent?
I don't know nothing about him at all. Just know his record, and that's pretty much all I really know. I've seen a couple of tapes of him, but that was way before. So that's N1. That's gone. I'm not focusing on that. I just plan to be the technician that I know I am. Once I get in the ring, and adjust. And this is something that I've done before. It's probably I'm gonna treat it just like another day in the gym. Just gonna work to my full potential and full speed. So.
Well, one of the things I've noticed, and you're probably going to have this advantage against just about anybody, unbelievable reach for you, 84-inch reach. It's, I think, about a 10-inch reach advantage over Collins. Saturday, that's a huge advantage, and yet I've seen you fight on the inside, and you've been very impressive. So it's you got some attributes there that you're using to your full advantage. Do you notice whenever you step into the ring a big reach advantage in your favor?
Yeah, well, and as you probably know, the way I throw a jab at first, I was thinking, why the hell you throw your jab like that, or why you do that, why you duck down like that? But try defending that. I tell everybody, try defending that, and every time I get in the ring, when I'm sparring or when I'm at the gym, when I get in the ring with somebody from the gym, they can never, can never do nothing about it. And it looks deceiving, like, but that way works damn good. And that's the jab, and I could throw the jab a whole lot of other ways, but the reach is definitely intervening sometimes. But sometimes when people apply that good pressure, that's when I have to go into my inside bag. So I'm glad that I have an inside game also.
And what about so far up till now, your opponent's punching power? Have you ever been shook up in the ring? Because that's usually the final question that has to be answered for a talented fighter. What happens when he gets hit hard? Have you had to answer those questions yet?
Yeah, well, I actually got clocked clean by Alexis Mejias in the first round. Uh, yeah, but I survived the round, and I survived the fight. I won every round after that. But he definitely hit me clean, and then he had added punches, with the rabbit punches and then punches to the back of the head. So I was even more messed up. So he almost had me going in the first. But other than yeah, go ahead. What you about to say?
Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, when something like that happens, is it all instinct from there? Do you have your bearings at all? If not, how long does it take you to get back on your feet? What happens when you get hit like that, especially with rapid punches?
Yeah, well, depending on how hard the punch is, but you pretty much got to be mentally, in tune with yourself. Because like most of the time when I go through things, this is with me. I don't know about anybody else. I would pretty much talk to myself. Like you would conversate with yourself inside of your head. That's working your brain, working your mentality, and getting all the avenues together for your body. You communicating. It's communication with yourself. So when you pretty much get hit, you communicate with yourself in a sense to where you're like, oh man, he just cracked me. Like you have to say something to yourself. A lot of people probably go through the blank mind, to where though, they start to panic, or most people may hear the crowd, or most people, may hear that one person in the crowd that's yelling or whatever. But I pretty much like, stay in tune with myself, and I'm talking to myself, saying, "Come on, let's get it together, get it together." I'm pushing myself at the same time.
And how long did it take you? I mean, was it like that for the entire round? When did you get it back together and you didn't have to do that?
I pretty much just had to use my legs, do a little bouncing around and stuff like that, But I was aware. I still was dazed, but I was pretty much aware. But and then I still made it difficult. It was always difficult for him to hit me clean, and that's another thing. A lot of guys, most of the time, they try to run all the time, but you can't really run all the time when you get hit with something. Sometimes you got to put more and more pressure, because a lot of these guys don't have that inside game, to pretty much, stop you from, putting that pressure. So, as opposed to a guy, when he get hit, instead of him backing up, that the other guy has full momentum. He can swing wild, long shots and hit you with their big hands. But like if you put pressure, now they got to work hard for the shot. You cover it up real tight. You moving your head. You're trying to get yourself back together. And you're making him get tired at the same time. So that makes it more difficult for that person.
Now, the heavyweight division hasn't been kind to the Americans for quite some time. Yourself, Seth Mitchell is like kind of a new breed of young talent in the heavyweight division for American fighters, but it's been ruled by the Klitschko's for so long. They're getting long in the tooth, so who knows how much longer they're going to be around. But they've been so dominant, and what would it mean to you, like to rule, to get on top as an American heavyweight? Do you realize the importance of that to the history of the sport and to the sport in the the United States would be a lot healthier if we had a really good American heavyweight champion. Not to put any pressure on you, but you're one of the chosen ones now. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, it's a great thing because I know how great it would be to be, an American heavyweight. But it would be even greater to defeat a Klitschko. And one thing I don't really want them to do is retire. I want them to reign just as, reign for a long time until that person can beat them. So I pretty much will want to fight them. I don't want to see them retired without me getting my chance because it probably won't be as great. When the heavyweight champion is up for grabs, now all of a sudden you'll see all these so-called tough guys come back out, trying to take the heavyweight title because they know it's much easier now. So a lot of guys are hiding. Like it seems like there's nobody out there right now. But you have a whole lot of heavyweights just waiting for them to pretty much retire and waiting for an easier opponent.
Well, there's another heavyweight, not an American, but a younger, talented heavyweight who also calls himself champion. The only other heavyweight who has somewhat of a belt that is not a Klitschko, and that's Alexander Povetkin. And he has had some hard times getting the tougher guys in the ring. How long before you think you could be ready for a guy like that?
Well, has he ever even fought Klitschko?
No.
Why not? I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know. He has a victory over Chambers. He's been around. But I don't know. Do you think that he's avoiding the Klitschkos or the Klitschkos avoiding him? What do you think it is?
Well, I mean, we ain't just boxing just to be boxing now. We're just the world champions here. We're trying to defeat. You're trying to win something. So I mean, like, it don't make no sense not to fight him. Like, I mean, like, why not? You're at the top of your game right now, and you're not going to fight the champ. You don't want a belt. Like, well, you just want to just fight, just to be fighting. Like, I don't know, but I know in my opinion, I would want to face the champ. If you want to be the best, you got to fight the best.
Why? At what point do you think you would be ready? I mean, do you think you could fight a Klitschko at the beginning of next year? Would you take that and fight it?
Yeah. I'm looking more like January of 2013.
All right, sounds good. Well, you kind of answered whenever I have a new fighter come on. Well, not a new fighter, but a fighter that's new to the show come on. I always end with these fantasy questions, and you kind of, I think, answered the one already. Give me a couple of dream matchups for yourself. What current fighter would you most like to fight, and what fighter of the past would you have loved to match yourself up with in some kind of a fantasy type matchup?
Myself in the past, not at this point where I'm at now, but pretty much at the very top of my game. Holyfield, which is my favorite fighter. It'll be like fun. That would be like a great experience for me, and that'll be like skill for skill. You get what I'm saying? So that's like my all-time matchup. And for my matchup right now, I would think it would be it would have to be Seth Mitchell. For the fact that that don't even have to be a title fight, and that's an automatic HBO main event, pay-per-view type fight. Like, that fight will bring shitload of excitement, to the boxing game. That would be the only fight worth anybody else's, time right now for, like two Americans. That's like the best fight that you can put together, which would be me and him. And, that would be like HBO main event, still early in our careers before we even reach the top. Like, that's like something decent for both of us.
Yeah, that certainly would be great. Do you have a preference over which Klitschko you would like to fight? Everybody usually thinks one is better than the other. Do you have an opinion?
No, because once I fight one, I will want to immediately fight the other.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Bryant By By Jennings fighting Saturday night against John Collins at the Prudential Center. Any final thoughts, Bryant?
No. Well, I come to fight. I come to put on a great show, and I'm a work in progress, and I plan to reach my goal by 2013.
All right, and thanks for coming on the show. I will be ringside Saturday night covering the fight. I don't know if I'll get a chance to speak to you then, but would love to try to. If not, we'll talk again on the show.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. Have a good one. Bryant
By
By Jennings. I mean, when I saw this guy against Liakhovich, I was impressed. I watched a lot of his fights since then. The talent is there. He definitely has a great build for boxing. He has the big reach, and he knows how to use it. He could fight on the inside. He seems, although not the greatest of KO percentages, he seems to have some good power, like his right hand, and it should be fun watching him move up. Him, Seth Mitchell, a couple of others. I mean, you got these big, European fighters, and he's a pretty big guy, Jennings, but the talent is what needs to be done, and he has the talent, and because when you're fighting a big guy like Klitschko, who also has skills, it's very tough. Everybody talks about the Tomas Adamek fight with Klitschko, and it was a rough fight for him, but because the combination of size and skill is too much for a guy of Adamek's size. It's not just the size alone, because I've seen Adamek, beat up a bigger guy in Kevin McBride. The skill level that the Klitschkos have is extremely high. Say what you want about it, criticize them. Maybe they're a little too boring for you, but their combination of size and skill is the reason why they've ruled. You look at Vitali. The only guy to really best him in the ring was Lennox Lewis. Why? Because he was a guy who was just as big and had just as much skill. Well, Jennings is not quite as big as Klitschko, but he's working on that skill level, and I like what I see. Eddie Chambers, I'm going to try and get him right after this. So we're going to take a quick break.